In this video, I'm gonna show you 5 insanely good meals you can make in 30 minutes or less, all starting from one grocery store rotisserie chicken. First up is enchiladas, but not just any enchiladas. Thanks to a special cooking method, these are texturally superior in every way to the casserole version that your mom makes. Sorry, Linda. To get started, I'll pick all the meat off of one whole rotisserie chicken. For this recipe and all the recipes in this video, I'm using the whole bird, which on average is about 600 to 750 grams. For sake of ease, all the recipes are going to be standardized at 650 grams, which ends up being about 1.5 pounds of picked white and dark meat mixed together. For the enchiladas, I want my chicken shredded down into medium small pieces that are about 1 inch long and 1/2 inch wide, no bigger. From here, I'll make the enchilada filling by adding 300 grams of shredded Monterey Jack cheese into my bowl. I'm using pre-shredded because this is a weeknight recipe and it's all about speed. Then I'll add in 200 grams of green enchilada sauce. After tasting a bunch of different sauces, I found that the best over-the-counter option for enchilada sauce is the Siete brand, which isn't surprising. They make really high quality food. Of course, making your own enchilada verde sauce on a weeknight is totally possible, but it adds about 30 to 45 minutes of overall prep time. If you're interested in taking this all the way, I'll link to my very well-tested recipe for green enchilada sauce down in the description, but I designed this particular dish to be as quick and easy to make as possible while still being delicious. Next, I'll just jump in with a spatula and stir to get the sauce, cheese, and meat evenly combined. If at this point you see any huge chunks of chicken you missed during shredding, just go ahead and break those down. Next, I'll grab a saute pan and drop it on the stove over medium heat. Then I'll heat up some tortillas for 30 seconds per side. This is an essential step for quality enchiladas, you guys. Do not skip it. Heated tortillas are really pliable and soft and can easily be wrapped up around filling, whereas room temperature enchiladas are super brittle and firm and will definitely break when you try to build up the enchiladas. Okay, after 30 seconds per side, the tortillas are floppy as hell, so now I'll scoot them over to a tortilla warmer or wrap them with a damp towel to keep them hot while I warm the rest. In total, I like to heat up about 17 to 18 tortillas, which is 1 to 2 more than I need. There's always going to be a problem tortilla in the mix that's torn or deformed. To build these enchiladas, I'm going to take a tortilla, then brush some of my verde sauce on both sides. I like to use a pastry brush for this because it's effective and gentle, so the tortillas don't get torn up. Once the tortilla's got about 1 tablespoon of sauce brushed on each side, I'll grab roughly 60 grams or 3 tablespoons worth of my enchilada filling and place it on the bottom quarter of the tortilla. From here, I'll roll it up as tight as I can and tuck the seam underneath to keep this thing tidy and taut. I'll repeat that sauce and roll once more and then lay out the 2 enchiladas next to each other on a sheet tray. And then I'll just roll out the rest until I've got 8 pairs or 16 enchiladas all day. To finish building them, I'm going to drop down 1 large spoonful or about 2 to 3 tablespoons of my enchilada sauce on top of each pair. Then I'll drop on a strong pinch of shredded Monterey Jack on top of that. And once I've got these enchiladas smothered in sauce and cheese, I'm going to throw into a 450F oven to bake for 10 to 12 minutes. At this point, you can see the virtues of this method. Every single serving gets the perfect amount of melty cheese and fresh verde sauce. Ooh, and you get these crispy browned edges around the sides of the tortilla. You just don't get those in the casserole style. And after about 12 minutes of melt time, these enchiladas are, well, me likey the way they look. I mean, look at these things. The cheese is browned and bubbly and every pair has some perfectly crispy tortilla edges. These look like little enchilada pizzas. It's amazing. Now to serve, I'm gonna top with some finely shredded gem or romaine lettuce, then a long drizzle of crema or sour cream that's been thinned with some water. And then finally, I'll top with a little fresh cilantro and some crumbly, salty queso fresco, or feta if you ain't got no fresco. You guys, these enchiladas are easy, fast, and pack a huge punch of flavor. That's the holy trinity of weeknight cooking. Now I'm gonna call down my wife Lauren to taste these because enchiladas are her favorite non-shrimp food. Now kiss. Kiss me on the enchiladas. Are you getting it? Surprisingly, you can't even tell that the chicken in this dish was cooked separately. It totally integrates with everything else. It's cheesy, it's got a little bit of tartness from the sour cream. I love the crunchiness from the lettuce on top. That's really good.
And you get texture from the bake here that you wouldn't get in the casserole pan.
Yeah, casserole enchiladas have like steamed sides that I don't love. This is just way more dynamic and way more interesting.
10 of 10.
Up next is a super fresh pesto chicken salad that's perfect for the warmer months when you don't want to turn on your oven. To make it, I'll start with another whole picked rotisserie chicken, then flip that meat onto my cutting board so that I can chop it down into edible pieces for the salad. For this, I like to dice the chunks of breast, run my knife through the shreddy thighs, and then combine everything into a large pile and run my knife through all of it 1 or 2 more times. Now to make the sauce, I'm going to grab my food chopper and into the bowl of that combine 40 grams of untoasted pine nuts, 40 grams of grated Parmesan cheese, 40 grams of olive oil, 5 grams of salt, and finally 40 grams of fresh basil leaves. Once everything's in the pool, I'll chop this down into a rustic paste. A quick note here is that since this is a small amount of pesto, getting it to spin in a large food processor can be tricky. So if your pesto isn't catching on the blades, drizzle in a little bit more olive oil until things loosen up and you should be good to go. Next, I'm going to scoop all that pesto into my chicken bowl, then add in 160 grams of nice mayo. I prefer Duke's. Then finally, I'll add in just a little bit of lemon juice. Of course, we don't want a sour tasting chicken salad. I want just enough acid to kind of balance out some of the richness from the pine nuts, the olive oil, and all that mayonnaise. I'm using about half a lemon's worth. Next, I'm going to jump into the bowl and stir to get everything combined, but also break down the chicken more. Smushing the chicken into the sauce gives this salad a much more unified texture that I think just tastes a lot better. I go as far as to break down the chicken with my ground beef musher because one of my chicken salad pet peeves is huge chunks of chicken swimming in sauce. I think that the final salad should look almost whipped, like it should have little chunks of chicken here and there along with finely shredded bits that are unified with sauce. That's the ideal texture. Next, I'll grab a crusty ciabatta roll or some kind of sandwich vehicle that I've heated until brittle and a little bit crisp. Then I'll grab 3 to 4 leaves of gem or romaine lettuce and make them sandwich ready by crushing the rib section. This helps them lay flatter, which dramatically increases sandwich structural integrity. Then I'll dress the leaves by adding in a pinch of salt, a long squiggle of olive oil, and then a little bit of lemon juice. Dressing these leaves like salad makes them taste better and it makes for a much more thoughtful sandwich than just throwing on a random piece of iceberg. I'll drop a couple pieces of those lettuce on top of the ciabatta, then throw on 2 or 3 large dollops of my chicken salad, and then it's time for the finisher, which is more Duke's mayo. I'll take a big dollop of that, then throw it on the top part of the ciabatta and spread it. This layer of mayo is the essential glue that holds the top bread to the rest of the sandwich. All that's left to do now is to smush on the sandwich roof and marvel at the simple beauty of mayo, basil, and roasted chicken. It's almost too pretty to eat. Almost. Juicy chicken, bright, fresh pesto, and then little buttery crunches from the pine nuts every now and again. Overall, this chicken salad punches way above its weight class considering that it only took like 10 active minutes of prep. And I think this is gonna be like my new go-to easy lunch during the week when I want something that's really vibrant and fresh, but also easy. Maybe pair it with some Diet Coke and a little bag of kettle chips and be a little nasty boy. I'll be nasty. Up next is a certified banger. This dish should get an award for best use of pre-cooked meat in 2025. Of course, I'm talking about rotisserie tikka masala. To make it, I'll start by grating 1 onion on the large holes of my box grater and then run my knife through that grated onion once or twice to break it down even more. I'm grating instead of dicing because it requires less skill, effort, and attention than dicing, and it cooks way faster. Next, I'll take a knob of ginger and about 7 to 8 garlic cloves and grate them down on my microplane. For the same reason as the onion, grated aromatics are easier to prep and they cook faster. In total, I want 20 grams of ginger and 20 grams of garlic. Next, I'll grab a medium saucepan and drop it over medium heat. In this case, I'm using the ceramic-clad non-stick 10-inch saucier from Made In, the sponsor of this vid. In case you haven't heard of them by now, Made In designs professional quality cookware for the home cook, and their stuff is used in hotshot Michelin restaurants like Alinea and Le Bernardin. That second one is where my close friend Chef Eric Repair works. This is me and him hanging out. We're very close. He respects my cooking. I've been a huge fan of Made In's cookware for over 3 years now, and I pretty much exclusively use their non-stick and stainless collections in my videos and for my home cooking. But like a lot of people, I've been on the lookout for a non-stick option that's completely food safe, and that's exactly what Made In's new ceramic-clad collection is going for. These pans have the same 5-ply stainless base as Made In's other cookware, but instead of traditional non-stick, they use a natural ceramic coating. These pans are made in the USA and Italy without PFAS, PFAS, PFOA, BPA, or any other gnarly acronyms that you don't want in your food. I've tried several ceramic pans over the last couple of years, and honestly, made-ins are the nicest by far. Check out the Ceramic Clad collection and all of my other favorite cookware for Made In at the link in my description. Now, over medium heat, I'll add in a large dollop of ghee, or about 30 grams worth, and I'll melt it. If you don't got ghee, just sub in olive oil or coconut oil. Then I'll add in, be careful bro, grated onions are super wet and that pan got way too hot while you were messing around with the camera. Okay, once the onions have chilled out, I'll add in a small pinch of salt, then jump in and sweat for about 5 to 6 minutes. At this point, I basically just want to cook out some of the onion's moisture and soften them a bit before I add in the other aromatics. 5 minutes later, I've got softened onions that are about to take on some color. So next I'll add in my grated ginger and garlic, then stir those in and saute over medium-ish heat for about 2 minutes to open up their flavor. A quick note is that since everything in this pan is grated, we got to keep it moving frequently so that it doesn't start to burn. It's got a lot of surface area. Okay, things are smelling really fragrant and the aromatics are nice and soft. So next in goes 10 grams of curry powder, 10 grams of paprika, 10 grams of garam masala, 5 grams of chili flakes, and 10 grams of cumin. Then I'll stir in the spices and fry over medium heat to bloom them out in the ghee for about 1 minute, or until I've got a delicious smelling reddish brown paste like this. Next in goes 1 can of good tasting crushed tomatoes. I like Cento or Bianco di Napoli. Then 250 grams of heavy cream. And once that's stirred together, I'll add in 5 to 7 grams of sugar and another pinch of salt, maybe about 3 to 4 grams worth. From here, I'll bring this whole thing up to a simmer, but be warned, this MF is super ploppy. Like dangerously so. Cut to what happened when I walked away for 2 minutes to wash some dishes. It's literally everywhere. So to avoid making your kitchen look like a rest stop toilet, you gotta cover it with a lid during the simmer. And after a quick 5 minutes of simmering, the aromatics in the sauce are fully tender and the flavors have had some time to integrate. From here, I'll grab a whole bird or 650 grams of picked and shredded rotisserie chicken meat and then drop that meat into my sauce, stir it to combine, then simmer it for 1 to 2 minutes to heat the chicken through. The final texture here should be meaty and semi-thick, but still saucy. To serve, I'll pile it high on top of some steamy, aromatic basmati rice, then drizzle with a little bit of thinned out yogurt, and then finally a little fresh cilantro to bring some color. And that's a slamming bowl of food for very, very little effort. I think anyone watching this video who likes tikka masala would love this dish. It's so heavily spiced. It's got all this beautiful aromatic flavor from the ginger and the garlic. It's a little bit spicy. It's creamy. It's tomatoey. I've been eating this on rice for basically this entire week. We tested the recipe a few times and I took the leftovers home, and I'm on like day 4 of eating this and I'm still loving it. Up next is the type of dish that you'd make when you really want to impress your lover. It's a creamy Tuscan chicken pasta. To make it, I'll heavily salt a big pot of water, then add in a half pound or 225 grams of pasta. For this dish, I prefer fusilli or rotini because these little folds are tailor-made for holding on to the cheesy, creamy sauce. Also, this dish is the only one that uses a half a rotisserie chicken or about 325 grams worth, but you could easily make a double batch and use a whole bird if you're feeding 5 to 8 people and you've got a nice big pot to make it in. Okay, I need to break down this meat for the pasta, but instead of shredding it like I did for the first couple recipes, I'm gonna dice it or rough chop it because I think shredding isn't a good textural match for spiral pasta. Speaking of pasta, I'll head over to the stove and bite into one of these little fusillis, and it's perfect. That took about 8 to 9 minutes of cooking. So next I'll save a cup of the pasta water, then drain off the noodles in the sink and immediately hit them with a long ziggy of olive oil whilst agitating them to get them coated. This will keep the noodles from sticking to each other while I use the pasta pot to cook the sauce, which takes about 10 minutes. Back at the stove, into a long drizzle of olive oil, I'll add 125 grams of small diced onions, 20 grams of minced garlic, 15 grams of chopped Calabrian chilies, and a pinch of salt. From here, I'll sweat these down over medium heat for about 4 to 5 minutes while I finish up my knife work. I'll start that with a bag of baby spinach, or about 225 grams worth. Then I'll run my knife through the spinach leaves 3 to 4 times to break them down. In my view, large leaves of spinach are slimy when they're cooked, and I just don't like it. So I chop them down into smaller pieces so that they will integrate with the pasta much better. Next, I'll rough chop 100 grams of artichokes and 75 grams of sun-dried tomatoes. For this recipe, use canned artichokes instead of marinated because marinated are usually pretty sour. And also use sun-dried tomatoes that aren't super tough and raisiny. Back at the stove, my aromatics have lost their water and they've softened up nicely. So from here, I'm gonna add in 550 grams of of half and half, then I'll bring the whole thing up to a simmer. If you guys made the tikka masala earlier and you still have a thing of heavy cream in your fridge, you can use that up by subbing it in for the half and half by going with 350 grams of cream and 200 grams of chicken stock. Next, I'll add in all of my chopped spinach leaves and stir into the simmering half and half and cook those for about a minute or so. Once they're wilted down and fully submerged in the dairy, like this, I'll add in my artichokes along with the sun-dried tomatoes, then I'll simmer those along with the spinach for, I don't know, about 2 more minutes to reduce the half and half a little bit and to infuse the liquid with the sun-dried flavor. Next, I'll add in my cooked fusilli, then 325 grams or a half rotisserie chicken's worth of meat, then I'll stir that to combine. At this point, the sauce is loose and not really gripping the pasta, but that's to be expected. We're gonna get it real creamy by killing the heat and then adding in 50 grams of butter and 50 grams of grated Parmesan cheese. Then I'm gonna stir that in to combine and give everything an aggressive toss to loosen the starch on the pasta. The more vigorous you toss the pasta at this point, the more luxurious and creamy the final dish is gonna be. So don't skimp on this step. When it's done, the sauce should be clinging nicely to the noodles like this, and it should look a little bit glossy. The final step is to taste the pasta for salt. And even though I added salt during cooking into the pasta water, this still needs a strong pinch. Oh, and as it sits, it's also thickening up quite a bit. So I'm gonna add in a little splash of my reserved pasta water to make things saucy again. To serve, I'll top with a ton of fresh cracked black pepper and then a very strong grip of grated Parmesan cheese. And that's a pasta that you can make in about 15 to 20 minutes that's guaranteed to make someone in the mood.
You guys, it somehow perfectly blends mom casserole with fancy Italian restaurant. It's like right down the middle. If you like things that taste good, you're gonna love this. This is like my favorite dish in this whole video, honestly.
Okay, the last dish is a hearty, cozy chicken and orzo soup. I make this exact soup or something very similar to it like 30 weeks a year. It's that good. To make it into a large pot, I'll add a long squeezer of olive oil, then 750 grams of frozen mirepoix. Dude, most of it's stuck to the bowl. I'll just scrape that in and explain what frozen mirepoix is. First of all, mirepoix is the combination of onion, carrot, and celery, usually in a 2-to-1 onion to other stuff ratio. And it's the backbone for most soups. I like to buy frozen mirepoix sometimes because it's cheap and saves me about 10 to 15 minutes of knife work. If your grocery store has it, it's a real weeknight weapon. If it doesn't though, chop up 250 each of fresh onion and carrot and 125 grams of fresh celery. And after a quick 5-minute saute, my mirepoix has melted and has softened a little bit. So next, I'm gonna add in 100 grams of better than bouillon chicken base. If you don't have better than bouillon, you'll need to sub in some kind of powdered bouillon to taste. Next, I'll add in 3 grams of turmeric, 5 grams of garlic powder, 3 grams of oregano, 3 grams of black pepper, and 3 boxes of store-bought chicken stock, which is about 2,700 grams. Okay, now that that's in, I'll bring the whole pot up to a spirited simmer. Once I'm boiling, I'll turn the burner down, then add in 225 grams of orzo, or the small pasta noodle of your choice, and then I'll add in 200 grams of collard greens or kale or Swiss chard. To prep these leaves, I cut out the stem, then made them into a pile, and then sliced them top to bottom every 1.5 inches or so. From there, I turned 90 degrees and then rough chopped these long strips into squares. The idea here is a leaf that will fit onto a large soup spoon. Next, I'll bring the soup up to a boil and cook the collards and orzo together for about 8 minutes or so. 8 minutes later, I've got tender greens and swollen orzo. Now the soup's ready to be chickened. So I'll drop in all of the chopped meat from one rotisserie. Again, that's about 650 grams worth. Then I'll jump in and stir the chicken in to warm it through. And then finally, I gotta give this a taste test for salt. When using bouillon, the salt level can be a little bit unpredictable. So you have to taste it and see what it needs. To serve, I'll drop 3 to 4 ladles worth into a deep bowl alongside a crusty piece of bread. Man, that looks so good. This is by far the most chickeny tasting dish in this entire video. Now let's give it a taste.
Man, that's just good tasting soup. It's very chickeny. You get little springy bites of orzo every now and again. There's greens in here, so you know it's kind of healthy. And it's just hearty. It's rustic. Soup is neat.
Hey, just a reminder that last year I designed a chef's knife for you guys, home cooks. It's got a Japanese chef's knife silhouette so that it looks great and it's a pleasure to cut with, but it's made from durable steel, so you can really beat it up without worrying about it. I'll throw a link down in the description if you're interested. Thanks, I hope you like it.